Mike's Daily Podcast.
I just heard Senator Chuck Grassley, the guy who's in charge of the hearings for the Brett Kavanaugh thingy. I just heard him on Hugh Hewitt. He's on a DJ, not a DJ, whatever you call him, radio people that we carry on one of the stations I work for. Just said, Chuck Grassley said that the lady that is accusing Brett Kavanaugh,
Mike's Daily Podcast,
of stuff, that she's not returning his emails, that she will not actually confirm that she'll be
Mike's Daily Podcast
at the big hearings next week. You've been hearing about these hearings, and it's hearing. That's Chuck Grassley, what he sounds like. Yeah. He's like in his 80s, and he's running this big thing. Crazy. That's called retirement, my friend. You can sing and be a politician until your dying day, I guess.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And I just want to say that that's impressive. But yeah, so that's happening right now. Did you know? Have you heard
Daily
about this whole situation?
Podcast.
I think if I put news/politics as the label for my podcast, perhaps you have, because you listen to political podcasts. And I just want to say politically that Brett Kavanaugh, well, the story is that he was a teenager, just like out of high school or some. I think he's still in high school. And this lady by the name of, look who just walked in, Christina, I think, is it Christina Blasio Ford, something like that? So this happened in the Bay Area, I think. Or she's in the Bay Area. Anyway, I got all my facts straight, as you can see. She is a professor at Palo Alto. I know that. In Palo Alto, she is a professor. I know that because at Palo Alto is just I can throw a rock at Palo Alto from where I am. Look who else walked in. And she's saying that like he laid on top of her and was grinding, okay, and that there was a guy in the room, I forget his name, but that let me throw that rock at Palo Alto. So there's something weird going on there, and it affected her life. It affected her marriage because she thought about it years later. She's 51 now. I know these facts. And so that's very fascinating to me, this whole thing that's going on.
And here's today's podcast picture.
Because it's still developing as this podcast is recording. And some people have walked in, as well as the podcast picture. Hello, Mega Masters, Madame Rootabega, and I don't know what any of this is you're talking about. Ooh. Basil! That's the important thing, is that it's Basil's birthday! Yay! Applause! Basil is now double digits. I am so happy. So happy for him. He got to double digits. Wow. That is so impressive, Basil. Basil, dance around. Take a lap. There he goes. Woohoo! And we did a little hike yesterday where he showed off his... this is going to have to be a Basil picture today on his birthday, huh? Should we do that? Well, I would like to do that, but then I also feel bad because Basil's good friend Zoe, who I once did a podcast picture of, Zoe passed away yesterday. Yeah. So I feel like in deference to the... Well, but then again, the people that... who own Zoe probably will never listen to this podcast. But hey, let's look back to what happened on this date a year ago, shall we? A year ago, I was in Florida. That's right after Hurricane Irene. Yes, and I'm looking at some of the pictures now from last year. Yeah, there was, it didn't look that bad. They had cleaned up a lot already. But yeah, it was, I guess it's that Florida time of year where I end up in Florida. North Carolina, still dealing with the flooding. Ugh. And we don't really know that here in California. I mean, we get flooding. Actually, San Jose flooded, didn't it? But yeah, it's here I'm kind of up on a hill, so it'd be difficult for me to ever get flooded. But yeah, so that's what happened a year ago. And Basil's mother-in-law, or wait, grandmother-in-law, grandma texted me on Facebook, and she says hi and wants to walk with Basil. And this part of the show I know means nothing to anyone, but it was put on the show because I thought you should know. And it's early, and it's 5:51. And it's also an interesting day because we'll see what Mr. Chuck Grassley says that the accuser has not gotten back to him, as if she doesn't care, or she doesn't want to get. She wanted to remain anonymous, and then Dianne Feinstein had the letter, and it was addressed anonymously to the Washington Post, I think it was. And Dianne Feinstein, the lady's accusations against Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh is running for the Supreme Court, by the way. He's going to replace Anthony Kennedy. That's the plan anyway. Trump wants him in there like yesterday. And but this thing comes up. Now, to Trump's credit, he said, okay, well, if she is saying this about him, we do need hearings. So he's at least being sensible in that way. And then we have a Trump sound effect,
which is a very good thing. Which is a very, very good thing.
And there it is. So what ended up happening was I guess she's not returning the emails, and we'll see if that hearing actually does happen on Monday. But it is, in effect, causing the delay of his being put into the Supreme Court, because they thought, it's all going to be done by like this time next week. And well, no, it's taking forever. As is trying to find a nice podcast picture to use today. I'll have to tell you what it is at the end of the show. Perhaps, this is an interesting one. Basil got to be on Lake Chabot. This was right after my trip from Florida. He got to hang out on a boat. I'll put a picture of that. Basil on Lake Chabot. That sounds like a plan. Let's do that one. This one here. You'll get to see a little bit of my leg. And yeah, all right. You want to see my leg? I know that because it's so, round and fleshy looking. Well, I have one of these pictures with Basil. So yes, that's what Basil's birthday today. So happy for him making it to double digits. Pie in the sky people. I wrote this down. Pie in the sky people. These are people that they think they can buy a radio station. Yeah, like, why would you buy a radio station? But a friend of mine got a call. A friend of mine that works in radio gets a call from this guy. Hey, I want to buy a radio station. What do I need to do? And not only is it expensive, not only to actually you have to keep powering this transmitter, basically. And if you don't, there's legal repercussions with that because you're dealing with the FCC. It's a long, complicated thing. Like if you podcast, you can go, I don't want to podcast today. Which a lot of people that say they want to podcast, they end up not podcasting at all. And it's ridiculous why they even started in the first place. This one with Basil looking at ducks. That's what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, what happens is these pie in the sky people think that, you just buy a radio station. To me, even though I've been in radio for over 30 years, I would never, ever buy a radio station because first off, radio is it's got so much competition. You've got the podcasters, you've got the internet radio stations, you've got the fees, you got to pay all the musicians that you play. You've got to pay the employees, pay the electric bill. That's why radio stations don't pay their employees hardly anything. It's a losing proposition. I don't know why you'd want to buy a radio station and then no one can find you. If you're a brand new radio station, no one can find you because people are so stuck in their ways listening to whatever they're listening to. Maybe they're on Spotify. You got all those to deal with too. Pandora. which makes me think about the downfall of the cloud. And why are people still uploading things to the cloud? To different cloud, for example, Dropbox. That was the first cloud people that I dealt with. That's where when that came around, and I first found that out through a guy that worked at an NPR station, and he was interested in possibly me doing a show that I would produce at home, and then I would upload it to a Dropbox account, and then he would download it from his radio station and play it on his radio station. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll do that. And Dropbox is what the first cloud thing I discovered. And then Apple had a cloud. Now, Google has Drive, and you've got the Microsoft with their Windows and their Windows.com thing. They call it OneDrive. But back to Dianne Feinstein. So there's an election for her. She's got to get voted back in to keep being a senator. And I don't know if this is going to blow up, this whole thing that she actually sat on this letter from this accuser of Brett Kavanaugh, Christine Blasey Ford, sat on that letter and didn't tell, she told just a few people, but didn't tell anybody else in the Democratic Party. And there she was sitting right next to the guy that's running all the confirmation hearings, the Chuck Grassley, he was the guy that when the hearings began, he just was, we want to welcome Brett Kavanaugh and his family and his lovely wife and two daughters and welcome them. And people kept interrupting him. What's her name? Oh, I can't think of any politicians' names today. That's why this is a good political podcast. They're all, point of order, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Senator, we want to move to, these are our problems. Cory Booker and all of them. That person. I had so many signals on the way as we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Do you know, at 4:45 in the morning, driving up Mission in the Bay Area, in the East Bay, you're driving south if you're going from Podcastro Valley down to Fremont. You got to go through Hayward, Union City, you end up in Fremont, but there are so many lights, and some of them just turn red and there's nobody there, or somebody just making a right turn. They don't even need the signal to turn red. They can make a right turn, the traffic. If they've got a red light, they can still make a right turn. They can make a right on a red, and these lights still turn red, so you have to stop so they can make their stupid right turn. It's annoying! But it's Basil's birthday, and that's the important thing. Yay, yay, yay. I'm so happy for her, for him, and for you for listening to Mike's Daily Podcast with the podcast picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. And episode 1705. Yes, we've jumped around a lot on today's show. But I did enjoy the New York Times Daily Podcast did bring to light a lot of what was going on with this whole Brett Kavanaugh accusation. It began with an anonymous tip, and then there's the other but now no longer anonymous, and now but still remaining anonymous, the person that wrote the op-ed about Trump and about how behind the scenes so many people are doing things that Trump doesn't want them to do. And
he's a showboat. He's a grandstander.
Just so that the government doesn't fall apart, apparently. And who wrote this op-ed? And is it Lodestone was the word? Lodestone. Interesting. And they think that was Mike Pence writing that. But yeah, that's about it. I can't think of anything else. I think we covered it all. Main thing is it's Basil's birthday. And that you have a wonderful Tuesday. Or whatever day you're listening to this show. Next show, it's going to be the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, and John Deere the engineer. Woof. Way to go, Basil!
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at Mike'sDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at Mike'sDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!